Hey everyone, Christopher Ruocchio here of Sun Eater, back with another Q&A video. I almost said monthly update. That's not what this is. But I was recording the monthly update for the last 3 days. Yeah. Joe, thank you for doing yeoman's work here. Should we take bets on questions asked today? When is Daw reprinting Disquiet Gods? Yeah, I don't know. It was like half the questions on the last monthly update video. I would have mentioned it if I had news, but they haven't mentioned anything to me about that. When is the Diamond Edition Howling Dark? Also, still don't know. Book 7 not quite done, officially done in terms of writing, but unofficially still in editing. So not quite there yet. Everybody hear me okay? Make sure everything is good. No one's telling me that they can't hear me, so all awesome. All right. Cool. I'm gonna try to catch up on the chat real quick, but I do also have some of these, and I may as well work through them, even though this is not officially a signing stream. But I have 3 1/3 crates left of 6, so I may as well. I probably won't do this whole stack I've got in front of me because I have this is a lot of them. But yeah. So let's see. Before I start though, hope everything's going well with you all. Let's see. We just finished Disquiet Gods, beginning of the month. Ordered Shadows Upon Time for my birthday. Well, happy birthday, and thank you for picking it up. Gonna go right into Shadows Upon Time, waiting on Disquiet God. Sounds like a plan to me. Freshly signed. Thank you for picking up a signed copy. What are you guys reading currently? I am reading nothing. I know you're talking to the chat, but I'm going to answer it like it's for me. I'm reading nothing at the moment. I have a couple of books I forget the names of that I have to read for blurbs, but that'll be next. Basically, my only fiction reading is for blurbs anymore. So, but yeah, it's a JT Greathouse book and a Claire North book, I think, for the authors, but I can't remember the titles. Yeah, so we'll get there. Reading Lord of the Rings for the first time, awesome. Tolkien sure does love his landscapes. I feel the need to mention this because I just talked about this actually on the last live stream I did with iWizard and the Tudor Ramble guys. The reason for that is thematic, and maybe by the end of the book it'll be a little bit clearer. I assume you've seen the movies, but there is actually more to the ending. You might not know if you've never read the book before, so I won't say anything and ruin it. But there are thematic reasons for those landscapes. It is important. They did cancel Wheel of Time. Yeah, I saw that. I'm not even touching the Rings of Power. Everyone knows it's not Lord of the Rings. Zane, you finished Stress of Her Regard. Awesome. Yeah, the ending is great. Ross, good to see you too. Should pin a message if you can in the chat. I'm sure I probably could, but watching me fuss with that live would probably not work for me. Would not make for good television. Doom, good to see you. Josiah, have I looked into Joe Abercrombie's new book, The Devils? I have never read any Abercrombie. Oh no, that's not true. I read Half a King, which is, I hear, not representative of his larger work, but I haven't looked into the new book at all. Is Claire Obscure in my playlist once you get through bookwork, because you are a Lost Odyssey and From Software fan? I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah, I would like to play it. But yeah, I don't know. Night Rain's out in a couple of days, so I'll probably play that for a bit. But I do want to play Claire Obscure eventually. But I don't know when. How can I request an ARC for Shadows hype for the book? The only way that you can get an ARC for Shadows Upon Time is through NetGalley, which is really for book critics. You can apply, and the publisher will decide whether or not to approve your request, basically. But anybody can make an account. They just it's up to them whether or not they approve or reject. Is the art that's included in the various special editions published anywhere for people who don't own them? Not comprehensively, I don't think. I don't think that I don't think all the Diamond Edition art is posted because I got distracted. It could be. I just needed to actually have time to sit down and make Instagram posts. It's Instagram posts or more book, right? Because like even getting this live stream done, right? We were juggling the two children, trying to get them through bedtime, and it was sort of rush upstairs. I got here like 10 seconds before before we started, and actually I think I was marginally late. So I it's hard for me to do everything. But as far as Broken Binding, I believe they've posted everything on like their Instagram page, so you'd have to go look through. And then the Endoritis stuff, the covers I think are all posted somewhere or other, but I don't think that Rob really. Endorita Books doesn't do a lot of social media, and so they might not be up with posting everything. But then most of the stuff for Endorita Books hasn't been posted because most of actually what Kieran has done for them isn't out yet because Empire of Silence is still to come. So the short answer is mostly no, actually. Diamond Edition's my fault, but the Endoritis stuff is still on its way. So Stanley says in Howling Dark, one of the old aristocrats mentions the Chantry weren't so strict before the Sealson War. Could I elaborate on what they were like before First Contact? It really depends on like the period in Imperial history, right? Because like things change, and it just sort of depends on who's in power and what the balance of power is, and so on. And so there were periods where these things didn't matter as much or weren't being enforced as much, just because the nature of politics in the broader galaxy was one way or another. And so it's not really a question of before, it's a question of when, right? And obviously the Sealson question is one that they've had to really struggle with as sort of a matter of public policy and enforcement. And so things have gotten a little bit stricter, especially with regard to the sort of ancient alien questions, right? And it just depends on time and place and culture. Yeah. So, have I read the Gormenghast trilogy? I certainly have. I'm going to probably not be able to put the questions and sign. So, have I read the Gormenghast trilogy? Yes, I have. I love the Gormenghast trilogy, particularly the first two books. That's a pretty normie opinion. The third book is very different, obviously, and really sort of leans into the fourth and fifth books that don't exist, unless you count the version his wife put out, which I don't. I think it is interesting, but I don't believe that was the original plan. Similar feelings to like I don't think Hunters of Dune is really what was in the outline. I think it's quite different. Is Minos an acronym? Yes, but it is an acronym in Galactic Standard, so it doesn't translate to anything because I don't know what the Galactic Standard would be. Because Galactic Standard is the one language that exists the least, because I don't need to use it really. So yeah. Do I have a favorite author in the modern era? I know you tend to prefer previous generations. Like contemporary to me, or just is still working. Like I haven't read a lot of stuff that's coming out like right now. And even the writers that are still writing that I like are writers who've been around since because the thing about, let me back up. The reason I don't read a lot of stuff that's coming out now is because I'm working. And it's largely writers that I read when I wanted to be a writer, right? When I was a kid that I really, I really grew up reading and sort of stuck with. So I really love Guy Gavriel Kay. He's still working, but he's older. I really love Tim Powers. We talked about Stress for Regard earlier, also still working, but also older. But writers that are like my age or slightly older, right? I just was already in the industry. I've been in publishing for 10 years. My senior year in college, I started as an intern at Bain Books. And so my relationship with reading generally sort of changed, and I stopped keeping up with it like a sport. And so I just haven't been keeping up. And so every time I give an answer, right, somebody will say, well, it's not really a, a contemporary writer. So like I've never read Pierce Brown, right? I most of the books, like I've never read Mark Lawrence. Most of the books that people talk about, I just haven't really gotten to. I read the first Expanse book and I liked it, but I didn't continue. And that was like really my last attempt to sort of get into something that was ongoing. So like I do really, really like The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, but I read that because I had to do a blurb. It's difficult. I know I'm not the only writer who says this, but it always sounds very negative, I think. That when this becomes your job, your relationship to the art form itself kind of changes, and it's very hard. I find it very hard to be a fan of anything anymore, just because of the time commitment involved. So if I read a new book, it's because a publisher asked me to, or a writer asked me to. And that's like a whole complicated dance too. There's a video Tutor Ramble did about reviewers and writers being friends, but there's a similar mechanism where, like, if your friend who's a writer asks you to do a blurb, like, ooh, like I really hope I like it, So that could be tricky. Was Parliament of Owls a nod to Court of Owls? No, a Parliament of Owls is the name of a group of owls, in the same way that like a crows is a murder, right? A group of crows is a murder. And it was just named after that. I wanted to give the exalted ships all weird names, and that seemed like a good choice. How did I come up for the languages for the other races? Cielson is the only one that's really elaborated to any degree. Cielson is derived from Latin and Japanese, those being the languages I am most technically familiar with. I speak neither of them, but I did 2 years of Japanese in high school, which is mostly completely fallen out of my brain. And I did Latin all through college, and I was pretty proficient at it by the end. I was able to like translate a full Cicero text, but I've also not used my Latin at all really since college, except for like a couple lines in a book here or there. And so it is also atrophied greatly. But I used, the grammar basically of those two languages to build the Cielson language with the sort of gender voice construction conceit that I just sort of made up. But as far as the other ones, like especially the other human languages, they're all sort of cheats because they're supposed to be descended from existing languages. And so I use Google Translate and some cheating to make them sort of work like conlangs, but they're very sloppy. They mostly exist to convince people who don't read the root languages that it sounds convincing. But it is funny when like my Russian translator was, working on book 4, and there was, there's some Lothrian in that book, and it's derived from, I use Russian, Belarusian, and Ukrainian to sort of make the Lothrian language sort of work. And he was like, this word you used, very offensive in Russian. And I was like, oh, so I will change spellings and things, but in so doing, I used a slur. So we had to change that, which is funny. But it's part of the job. And then as far as I don't want to say too much about the Watcher languages, so I'll skip that. Do I think Pope Leo will call the Butlerian Jihad and will I pick up arms if he does? Well, he did say that he explicitly picked the name to sort of echo Leo the 13th's sort of challenge to the dehumanization of the Industrial Revolution. With regard to, in this case, he said, a new industrial revolution with AI, right? So his choice of name is deliberately anti-AI, which makes me feel very relevant, prophetic in a sense. But yeah, so maybe as far as fighting AI, isn't that what I'm already doing? Of course, I wonder about that every time one of you makes an AI bit of fan art. I'm like, did you read the book? Like, I mean, some of them look cool. Like, the technology is interesting, but like, I'm with Hayao Miyazaki on this one. I'm like, why would you do this? Is it normal for the Tavrosi to live as long as members of the peerage? How did Valka pull it off? Valka was asleep a lot more than Hadrian was, if you look. and because no, it is not normal. They don't. They do live longer than imperial plebeians, but Valka is she's older than Hadrian when they meet, and then she spends pretty much the whole gap between books 1 and 2, for example, asleep, almost all of that time, and so Hadrian catches a lot of the way up, and then eventually passes her. Seeing some Greek influences in your books, yes, they're there for sure. Quick question: doing a reread for the first time, and I wonder what exactly happened to the ship that left Hadrian and Emish. Read and find out. The answer is there. It's in book 2 if you really look, but it will be made clearer later if you haven't gotten that far yet. Are there any plans to do a dramatized audiobook adaptation? There are no plans, but it would be cool. I'm a big fan of the old NPR performances of the original Star Wars trilogy, which if you've never listened to and you like radio dramas, are better than the films in a lot of ways because they're longer and there's like a lot more sort of world building and sort of breadth to them. New Hope's like 5.5 hours, and it's great. It's great. So I would love to do something like that one day, but I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that sort of thing, but no plans. Do I think Urbane was always that way, or was it a steady degeneration? It was no. Nobody is always that way. Even Sauron, it was not so, right? Urbane got that way by choice, like everybody does. So who gets that way? Not that nature is irrelevant, obviously, but some people don't fight their nature as hard as they should. Is Book of the New Sun one of my favorite series? It is my favorite science fiction series. Do I think Shadows Upon Time is my best body of work yet? Yes, I'm feeling very good about it now. It's hard to answer that question because I'm still very close to it. It's still not quite done, but I am very happy with it. It is substantially more complicated than the other ones. Is probably all I will say. What has my writing schedule been like? A mess. I have 2 children under 2. And so lately what it is I get up at about 4 o'clock and I work until my family prevents me, which could be 5 o'clock or it could be 10 o'clock. And things have been getting a little easier now. The young one is a few months old and sleep is starting to sort of stabilize. And my wife doesn't work now, thanks to you all. Thank you. And so things are a little bit easier around here, but even still, I mean, it's just hard, it's hard to get stuff done, but it's why I have very little quarter to give writers who struggle. I just life is hard. Just it do be like that, as I memed for saying. Let's see. Recently watched Kingdom of Heaven. I'm curious what you think about it. I used to really like it. As I learned more about the period, it has fallen into pretty much every other Ridley Scott movie for me that's not a science fiction film or The Duelists. All of his historical films are hugely troubling, like just not accurate to the period at all. It's extremely well acted. The Gregson Williams score is amazing, right? But like, that's not how it happened. And I'm not even like, that's without getting into greebly things like the costumes are not period accurate, right? It's just like, that is not what happened at all. It's just not right. Question, because I've been reading 1984. Are the Murakami pyramids at all related to the Ministry of Truth being a pyramid in 1984? No, I'd quite forgotten that it was. I don't know why I did that, to be honest, but I'm glad I did because it's cool. Was Wormtongue a sorcerer? I don't personally think so, no. Which modern religions are still practiced in the Salt Empire? Why do you think they persisted? I don't have a complete list. but like a large number of them are. And as far as why they persisted, I tend to be of the belief that institutions and ideas and objects that have been around a long time have been around for a long time because they work in an almost Darwinian sense. And that things that persist are likely to continue to persist. This is what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragility, right? And religions, at least the major ones, are anti-fragile, and or seem to be, at least a large number of them are. Christianity is 2,000 years old. Judaism is at least 5,000 years old, for example, right? And so, I don't see why that would cease to be true. I think that most science fiction writers, when they sort of paint the Star Trek vision of the future where these things all mysteriously vanish in the next 100 years, I think that's a much bigger ask than dragons. Like, I think those writers are just crazy. Because like already the sort of new atheist bubble has burst, right? Like it's not where the culture is anymore. And I would know because I was part of the bubble, and I was part of it bursting. So these things are a lot more immortal. These ideas, religious ideas, are a lot more immortal than people give them credit for. What is the name of the Christian sect that inspired the Celestial Cosmic View? Gnostics are not a particular sect. It is a category of sects. There are a lot of them. There's not a particular one that inspired the Cielson, and it's not the only thing that inspired the Cielson, but there are like the Marcionites are a kind of Gnostic, for example, sect, and there are a few others. There's one starts with a V that's escaping me right now, but there are a bunch. It's really their big distinction with small o Orthodox Christianity is that they believe basically that the physical world is bad and the spiritual world is good. And so this leads to some pretty primary fundamental disagreements with ordinary Christianity, especially over things like the nature of the divinity of Christ, right? Orthodox Christianity, again, small o, that includes big O Christianity, but like your mainline Protestants, right, Catholic Church, Orthodoxy, right, believe that Jesus is 100% human and 100% divine. The Gnostics don't believe that. They believe only 100% divine, right? Whereas other heretical groups will believe only 100% human, or they'll have like some like really like egg-headed argument about when and how that works, as opposed to just stating what I just stated. But yes, that Gnostic attitude towards reality, which is largely an attitude that is held by a lot of other Central Asian religions, like Manichaeism, for example, or by the Matrix, for example. It was sort of the jumping off point there. Do I think being a writer takes some of the joy, excitement away from reading? For sure. Oh, hey, Daniel. Guy Ruocchio is one of your favorite authors. Yeah, it's never not true. No, he's great. He's just a genius. And I do think it does take some of the joy away from reading, mostly just because it feels like work. You like say you work on computers, right? Like my dad worked on computers, right? And the last thing he wanted to do when he got home was learn that there was a problem with my computer and I needed his help, because he wanted to do anything else, right? I still like science fiction, but most of my science fiction is like in other media. It's like video games or something at this point. Just because I want to not look at books when I'm done working. I look at a book for, 9, 10, 12 hours a day if I'm lucky. Really like 3 or 4. And I want to do really anything else with my time. Do I think reading modern books would help you keep writing? No, I don't think that I don't think I need to read to write. I broadly think that okay, so this is like pretty standard writing advice, but this is like the bit of writing advice that Neil Gaiman would give out, right? And I'm not getting into any of that, right? It's like, oh, if you want to write, you should read. I think that's true, but I think the tense is wrong. I think if you want to write, you need to have read, right? Because at a certain point, if you want to be a writer in particular, continuing to read constantly can become a way that you procrastinate writing, right? Everything is research. And then, like I have friends who, have been writing books as long as I've known them, and I've known them for 10 or 12 years, and they just haven't, they just haven't finished it but they're, reading all the time. Am I a hockey fan? Not particularly. I like hockey, but I don't keep up with it. I do go to Canes games with my in-laws mostly. They're big fans, and that's fun to do. But I don't follow. I don't follow it. Could Hadrian's selection by the quiet and consequent long life be due to old-timey celestial hang-ups around his preference for older women? I don't even know how to answer that, but it's funny. Just finished re-listening to Sun Eater series, feeling lost, don't know what else to listen to now. Look forward to the next book. Take care of yourself. I'm doing my best. Thank you, Caleb. Book 7 is not too far away. How do I feel about the Force? How do I feel about how the Force is portrayed in Andor and Rogue One? That is my strong preference for how I would like the Force portrayed. My favorite part in Rogue One is Chirrut's death. It's great. That's like the best Force power example in Star Wars. It's awesome. He just walks across the beach and doesn't get shot. It's great. Beautiful. Love that. I liked the little Force healer thing in the second season of Andor. I thought that was really nice. Andor's a big mixed bag for me, but that was very good. On balance, it's very good. But I have more. I wish it were a little bit different. I am very frustrated by the almost complete absence of K2. I'm sure that was budgetary, but he's the best character they came up with. Can he be in more than 1.5 episodes? No. But yeah. Yeah, Caleb, I did do, my dad and I did the wood paneling in the office. Yeah. My dad, did the design work and the carpentry, and I did all the finishing work. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, really turned out. Still haven't built my bookshelves, as I keep reminding him. We need to do that. My books are still in cabinets, although I got more cabinets, so they're a little more spread out. But yeah. Can I talk a little bit about my event at Pauper's Books in June? Yeah, I will be at Pauper's Books, which is in Clayton, North Carolina, which is a little bit south of Raleigh, on the 14th of June at 11 a.m. I think I will be set up at a table and just talking to folks as they come through for a couple hours, I think is the format. John's here actually. And so if he has more information about that, I'm sure he can drop it in the chat. That's Strings. But username is Strings. Good to see you, by the way, John. Yeah, it'll be fun. Be there for a few hours. I think it's 11 to 2 or something officially. And then back on home. It's not very far from home. It's 45-minute drive or something, I think. I haven't been down to Clayton in a long time. Any advice on knowing where to do a chapter break, especially as versus a section break? So I mean, my advice is outline. It sounds like maybe you're not, if you're not 100% sure. Because if you're outlining, what you're trying to accomplish within the chapter, and then if you've gotten through that, right, then you need to start looking for an exit point. And you usually just want to end on something strong, right? That's usually like a rejoinder in dialogue. Somebody says something dramatic, right? Think about scene transitions in movies, right? Think about the greatest transition, of course, is in Lawrence of Arabia, right? When he blows up the mesh, right? No, it's going to be fun, right? And no, yes, yeah, that's right. I just was worried I'd put the scenes together, right? You want to end on some sort of note that leaves people wanting to turn the page, right? That might be a reveal. That might be, dramatic tension. That might be the start of a scene. Actually, you can end a chapter on the start of the next scene. The last 2 chapters in, or no, it's not quite the last 2 chapters. I think there's one more. The end of Harry Potter 1, right, where it's the chapter ends with, it wasn't, Snape. It wasn't even something. It was Quirrell, right? But I think it was Quirrell's either the first line of the next chapter or the last line of the previous one, right? Something like that is good to sort of keep people turning the pages. The real master of this, by the way, is George Martin. So go read Game of Thrones and look what he's doing in terms of moving the action at the end of every chapter and at the start of every chapter, because he just is his sort of past as a television writer is very evident in his chapter breaks and his chapter hooks. He's so good at them, and there's a lot you can pick up there. Alec Garland directing an Elden Ring movie, kind of surreal. Yeah, I have never seen an Alec Garland film ever, and so, but I know he's a big fan. I saw a little clip of him talking about Dark Souls and sort of the poetry of it and sort of the dreamlike qualities of it, right? Which I completely agree with him on, and I found very reassuring. I'm also reassured by the fact that he is in New Game Plus 6 on Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm not that far, so I will defer to I will defer to him. We'll see how it goes. A24 always makes me nervous. I think they suck, but we'll follow the director more than the studio. Studio like never really matters, but except this time, they've really made a name for themselves. Good evening. Do you have any news about the release of the Sunny books in Brazil? I do not know. I do know that. Okay, so I know that Brazilian Portuguese and Portuguese are pretty distinct at this point. But I do have a deal with a Portuguese publisher in Portugal, so that might be helpful for some folks in Brazil, but maybe not. But we're working on it. It's just sort of one step at a time. Still holding out on my next series being Lit RPG. Yes, that will never happen. Will we ever catch up to modern day Hadrian? Well, you'd have to see, right? Making art is very tempting. It feels like creation without the hard work. That is the problem, right? It's cheating, right? That's the real issue. There are some the whole AI conversation is very frustrating, right? Because obviously the stealing is not good. Stealing is wrong, right? But it's also we've had that conversation so much. Every time I see the conversation, I just sort of gray out. I'm I just don't want to. This is at this point the conversation is done, right? Except it's not, right? Because things aren't resolved. But I've heard it too much, right? But there are legitimate ways to use the technology, right? You could think about for animation, right? Instead of drawing every one of the 24 frames a second you need to make a film, you could draw maybe 1 frame a second, and you could get the AI to iterate between the frames you've already drawn. I think that's fine. I think that actually would help animation, which is so prohibitively expensive, right? And there are ways to make it work, but that aren't maybe wrong or terrifying. My concern with AI, really, right, as with all automation, is that it disenfranchises people of the opportunity to work. And that's maybe a weird phrase for a lot of people, because the object of most people's lives is not to have to work. This is an argument I have with my wife frequently, because I work all the time. And she's like, why would you do that? I'm like, well, it's fun. And I'm happen to be in the position of having a fun job, right? But it is one I feel obliged to point out that I worked really hard to have, right? I'm not saying that you haven't necessarily, but it's good for people to work. If people don't work, they very often get sick. There's a lot of scientific evidence about this. You see this with retirees, right? They quit and then they die, very commonly. And so, I really worry about a future where people don't have to work. I don't think it will be the utopia that people on the internet imagine that it would be. I think it would be very, very bad for people's mental health. Consider 2020, when a lot of people couldn't work. That was not good for people. Paul, thank you for the super chat. Shout out to my boy Yossi. Shout out to Yossi indeed. The Commonwealth is younger than the Empire. For sure. I don't remember by how much. It's written down somewhere. It just hasn't been super relevant. Do I have much time to read nowadays? Almost nothing. Yeah, no, I haven't read a book for fun all year. But this year has been acutely difficult on account of the new baby and the toddler and book 7 being not finished. So, does Cassandra have the same genetic enhancements as Jadian nobility? Yes, asterisk, right? She's probably not all the way there. I want to actually write an essay about how this works and actually get some of my genetic science friends to help me sort of sharpen it, because I think there's a lot that could be said there, and I liked writing the Marlowe history essay, but I think a science essay would be fun. I had no idea NPR did a radio drama of the original Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, you should totally listen to it. It's great. Mark Hamill is in it. Anthony Daniels is in it. Billy D. Williams is in it. But a lot of the other characters are different. Leia is different. Han is different. Obi-Wan is different. Brock Peters, who was in I can never remember the character's name, but he was in To Kill a Mockingbird. He was the defendant in the case, is Vader. He was also Lord Bloth in Pirates of Darkwater, which is great for me because I love that show. Yeah, you should totally check it out. There's a version of it on YouTube called Nigel's Edit that takes out the episode credits, so you can just listen to it straight through. They do the one set of credits at the beginning and then just move straight through, which will save you a lot of time and skipping. But I used to have the CD set, and I burn those things out. How old would I say the baby monster is? Which baby monster? Will your fantasy series be narrated from first person? I've been asked not to talk about it anymore. I said too much already. But I can't answer that yet. I do have a definitive answer to this, but yeah. So, but I can't say anything. What do other people say your strengths are with writing? I don't really know. Prose is the one thing people consistently say nice things to me about, but I don't know as beyond that, like a specific feature that somebody would say nice things about. Do I have a favorite Miyazaki film? Princess Mononoke, probably, followed by Spirited Away. I like a lot of them. I like Howl's Moving Castle. Yeah, I like Ponyo a bit too. It's so pretty. So pretty. I haven't seen Boy and the Heron yet. I really want to because I love Spirited Away so much. How do we feel about the original Thrawn trilogy as a continuation of the main Star Wars saga? I certainly like it better than what we have. I like them a lot. There are things about them I think are a bit strange. I don't like the clone, the Luke clone, and I don't like the ending. And I never really did. But I like. I've talked to Tim about this. What I really like about it, and this is the thing I really like about Andor too, is they took the Empire seriously. Tim took the Empire seriously as an institution, and you could reasonably say that Thrawn is not evil, right? He is an authoritarian, but he's not evil the way that Palpatine is evil, right? The problem with the Empire in Star Wars, the real problem is it's run by Satanists, right? Like it's just all the way at the top. It's so goofy, right? And sort of with Thrawn, there's almost a difference between the Germany of World War I, right, which is a normal country behaving normally by 19th century standards, right? And encountering the problem of recently mechanized warfare, and the Germany of World War II, which is evil, right? And so it's sort of played in reverse here, where Thrawn is not evil in the same way, and I really like that, and I like that about Andor. I like that the sort of the middle management types, right, in the Imperial institution are sort of treated with some humanity and given a degree of competency that they have not really been allowed to have really ever. Like even George frequently made his villains goofy, right? Darth Vader notwithstanding. They're just always sort of goofing up. It's sort of the Indiana Jones model of evil, right? whereas they were pretty chillingly effective in Andor. They were still making mistakes, but they were like understandable human mistakes. But then you've also got Miro has that moment where she stands up to Cyril's mother, right? Because she is terrible to him and he does not deserve that, right? And it's like, that's nice, right? It's like there's a scene that was cut from Return of the Jedi where Jared objects to the Emperor wanting to destroy the Sanctuary Moon, right? And I think that would have been really cool to have. So, but the point is I like that about the trilogy a lot. I like how competent Thrawn is as a villain, and how sort of sympathetic as a villain he is, right? Like his sort of vision of order. He has a dignity to him that really only Darth Vader has. Even Palpatine doesn't really have the sense of dignity because he's such a rabid dog in a lot of ways. But there are things about it, and I haven't read it in years, right? But there are things about it as a kid I was like, I'm not so sure. The clone Luke thing just still bothers the heck out of me. It always did. But I do like them a lot. Tim is just such a great writer. Such a great writer. And a lovely guy. Where do I think the Gene Wolfe is a Gnostic meme comes from? Probably just from illiterate people. Gene Wolfe is not a Gnostic. There's a real I think what it is people probably, because I used to encounter this in Gene Wolfe fan groups on Facebook, just cannot handle the fact that Gene Wolfe is a sincere Catholic because they respect him as a writer and an artist, and there are a lot of science fiction fans who just can't bear that. So it's the same as people who cannot believe that Tolkien is a Catholic, right? He has to be a crypto pagan, right? He has to be an Odinist, because I am, right, and I can't accept that this Catholic is capable of writing this book that I love so much. Because what does that say about me? Am I really a good pagan if I like Lord of the Rings if it's written by a Catholic? And I think there's a related mechanism here where they need to see this Gnosticism in Gene Wolfe in order to sort of justify their fondness for it. But I am, in doing this psychoanalyzing, and I think it was on my interview with you, Sam, where I said that psychoanalyzing really is a filthy modern vice. Being a North Carolina native, am I a fan of the Andy Griffith Show? Of course. Who isn't a fan of the Andy Griffith Show? Everybody should like it. It's great. I grew up on TV Land and Boomerang cartoons, so I'm a very old man. What video games have I been enjoying lately? Lately, the last game I played was Metaphor ReFantazio, which I did like very much. I mostly as a game. I think I said this maybe last stream. It won a BAFTA for writing, and I'm kind of baffled by that because it's not that deep or that complicated. But it was very, very good. And as a turn-based RPG, it was as polished a one as I played in 100 years. Talked about Andor a little bit, so I'm going to skip that one. Goon. Are the Protestants in Eastern Orthodox still around in Hadrian's time? No, there is only the Universal Church, which has sort of reincorporated. There's been a lot of ecumenism on account of the loss of Earth and things. Dale, I missed this question earlier, didn't I? Am I a fan of the culture series in Banks? If so, how has Bank influenced my work? What are my favorite culture books? My favorite culture book is Use of Weapons. Use of Weapons is amazing. Is it a sword? Yes, there's a katana up there. I've got a small collection. Most of them are over there. And it is very small. I have 6 swords. But there's one up there just because that's the one that fits. And it's the one that I have a stand for. The other ones are all in a rack. But to get back to the culture thing, Use of Weapons is my favorite one. I really like surface detail. I really like Consider Flavus. And I really like Inversions, which is maybe a deeper cut. Inversions is really fun because it's pretending it's not a culture novel. As far as how he affected me, Banks was, after Herbert, really my sort of first foray into space opera proper. And they were just so sort of wild and fun and different, each of them from one another, in terms of structure and presentation and tone and the world building involved. They're just all so diverse while being interconnected. And so and a lot of them have a bit of the science fantasy angle. Matter, which mostly I don't like. I don't remember why I don't like Matter, but I remember that one leaving me cold. But Matter, I recall, has this sort of like, feudal medieval world. So does Use of Weapons. Zakalomy comes from this medieval place, or sort of like early modern place, right? And that's like why he's so effective, why he's so himself, right? In the culture. Um, and so I was just so impressed all the way, like as a kid, and I still am. I really still love those books. Just by the scope of everything that he managed to accomplish in that universe, and I regret that I never got a chance to meet him. The thing I really really like about him, and the thing that maybe as an idea most influenced me, is that he was a very oppositional thinker, right? Banks was a committed leftist. I don't know if he was a Marxist or not, but all of his books, he would take his ideals and hit them with a sledgehammer and see how they broke. And he really he set up the culture as utopia, and then like exclusively looked at its cracks for the entire series. And I was just always very, impressed with that, right? It's just like the opposite of Gene Roddenberry in a lot of ways, right? Who just refused to believe there could even be a crack in the Federation at all. I remember the Snodgrass telling me they had to film Measure of a Man when he was on vacation because he didn't believe there would be lawyers in the future, and they just really wanted to run that script. So they filmed it against Gene Roddenberry's wishes because he just didn't believe in it. And it's like one of the better TNG episodes. I say that I don't actually agree with Melinda's premise. I don't really think that robots are people, and I don't think that you can I don't think you can cross that gap, frankly. But and I don't think we ever will. But it's still a great episode. Point is Banks he really attacked his beliefs with a sledgehammer, his own beliefs with a sledgehammer, and most writers don't do that. It's something that I think that my critics don't think I'm doing, but I think they're maybe not paying close enough attention or being patient enough because they haven't read the whole thing yet. So no, I think the world of Ian Banks. I think he's a genius. Can't answer the question about whether or not the fantasy will be first or third, but it'll be quite different in a lot of ways. Let's just say. How tall is the Emperor? Does he have martial training? What about strategy tactics training? He's probably close to 7 feet tall. Does he have martial training? Yes. What about strategy tactics training? Also yes, but it's not like his focus, right? His focus is his focus is in upper management, right? And so that's sort of why he does make those mistakes in the series. It's not really what he does. So, any thoughts about what Orwell might have thought about Sun Eater? I don't know really. I haven't thought about that at all. Hopefully flattered. Has the Chantry coming into more power after the start of the Sealson War caused technology advancement to stagnate, or does the Empire just not value technological advancement? It is partly this is a Raphael question. Partly it is yes to both. I will speak only to the latter point, which is that cultures, we have this view, I think, of progress as necessarily linear or necessarily exponential, even, right? Depending, because I think we look at the way technological progress in particular has advanced in the last 200 years. And I broadly think we've stagnated, actually. I think, a lot of, I think life looks more or less like it did, with the exception of the smartphone, when I was born. And even with the smartphone, I don't know that it's changed very much in the last decade. I remember watching a talk. I can't remember who it was made this point. It might have been Bill Gates or Peter Thiel or somebody like that. The things just weren't really changing very much anymore, and that does happen. Some cultures just don't maximize certain things, and they maximize other things, and that's just the way of it. And so the empire has not really needed to make a lot of changes, because they really do, in terms of pure scale, like they don't really have a rival, and so it's not really been an issue for them. So innovation has not been super necessary. When is the Sun Eater Con this year? Man, if I could plan a convention. Yeah, it'd be nice. I would like to do something for the release of book 7 is the answer, but like we'll see. Fun question: who wins in a duel, a full potential Anakin Skywalker or Hadrian in his peak? So this is an interesting question. Let's be real nerdy about this. Hadrian's powers are more powerful, but they're like, there's a weird mismatch there, because none of Hadrian's powers really manifest in sort of an active present way, the way that the Force does. He cannot, for example, make himself stronger or like leap higher, right? So Anakin is a lot more mobile. Anakin has psychokinesis. Hadrian does not, right? Let's assume that the weapons are compatible, and a lightsaber doesn't just cut through high matter, or vice versa. Let's assume they can actually fight. Anakin is probably better, again, just because of the sort of force boosting of his abilities will be above Hadrian's eugenic advantages. But Hadrian's powers are a lot broader and a lot wilder in their implementation, and especially if it's fast enough, I don't know that Anakin could keep up, especially later Hadrian. So it's difficult. It's difficult to really imagine. Stanley, I don't unfortunately really have a good answer to that question. I am like not up on the agent landscape at all. I am really sorry. Speaking of K2, do I view Star Wars droids as at all analogous to AI, or do they occupy a category more like a fantasy race? They're more like dwarfs, yeah. With the exception of 3PO's like linguistic faculty, like they're just people, right? And even that, right? 3PO can speak anything, is just a feature of his character. It's not like they don't act like robots, right? They talk, right? They don't just like data transfer instantaneously, right? No, they're just people. And don't get me wrong, this is not me knocking. 3PO is in a lot of ways my favorite Star Wars character. I love 3PO so much, but yeah, no, they're not really robots in a sort of behavioral sense. Have I thought about Sun Eater in relation to on fairy stories? Not in any technical way. Yeah. Would I consider it to meet what Tolkien is describing, or would you say it's a different genre or type of story? I mean, I do broadly think I'm writing a fantasy, but in terms of giving you a really technical answer, I am not prepared. And I would want to treat that a little bit more seriously. I haven't read on fairy stories in a really long time, so I would need to do some homework before I brushed up on it. Glad you completed Sun Eater before getting old, selling out, making too much money. There's still time. Sell out tomorrow. You never know. No, I thank you. I know what you mean, and it's kind of you to say. Let's see. Do good dogs go to heaven? It depends on who you ask. If you want the Catholic answer, there isn't a solid answer on this. Some people say no animals in heaven. Some people say sure. There is no definitive teaching on this subject. Is the correct Catholic answer? Is my understanding. If we have fan art we want to bring signed, would that be okay? That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that before. If you made it, for sure. If it was someone else's, I don't know. Because it gets a little bit complicated. Like, I can never read fan fiction for sure, right? Because I don't want to like read something and be like, oh, that's a good idea, and then steal from like one of my own fans, right? And it might be hard to like avoid doing that subconsciously. You might like read something in passing for 10 minutes, right? And then 5 years later have the idea organically, right? Which is very hard to explain to people who don't write that actually is pretty normal and is the sort of thing that people do all the time. But like, nobody's ever had this idea before, right? And actually you didn't have that idea either, right? And it just shows up. Yeah. So as far as fan art goes, man, I don't know. Certainly if you drew it, let's just say for now, certainly if you drew it and you want me to sign something that you drew, sure, right? If someone else's, it gets a little bit like, do I approve it? Am I trying to steal it? Like co-opt it in some way? I don't know. I need to think about it. Have I watched any of the Last of Us TV series? If not, have I played the games? No and no. I'm not really a zombie guy. And I know people are always like, they're not really zombies, right? That's every zombie thing. I prefer it if they really were, but no, I've never gotten into it. Have I thought about doing comic adaptations for Sun Eater? Not adaptations, but original stories in comic form in the universe. Yes. I'm not really interested in adapting the stories outright because you can just read the books. Not that we couldn't redo parts of the book or do something else, but I would much rather do new stories than something you've already seen in a different way. This is true like with video games too. Like, I would love to do a Sun Eater game, but I would love it to not be the books. I could still be Hadrian, but I would love it to not be the books. We'll do like between books 3 and 4 or something. Would be great. Was Columbia physically situated near DC or in California? That was an interesting question. How do you guys feel about Adam Driver as Hadrian? Well, he's already done the space thing, so probably not. This is like when people are like, "Oh, it should just be Timothée Chalamet." No, it should not. It should not be Timothée Chalamet. It's like they're disqualified. It's like putting Mark Hamill in your space project. Don't do it. Are the Cielsons using the word tech a reference to Poe's Gordon Arthur Pym? Yes. Yeah, 100%. Oh, the baby monster at the end of Disquiet Gods. How old? Well, at the end of Disquiet Gods, a few minutes. So, but I mean, it's very tall. It's very big. I think arcane style animation would be best for Sun Eater. I think 90s anime would be the best, but that's not just me, but that would be my strong preference. But it would not happen. So Mads Mikkelsen as Sagara. Sagara is Japanese, but Mads Mikkelsen is a legend. So ever played Bioshock? Yes, all 3 of them. They are great. Which human civilization do you think would have the friendliest encounter with the Cielson if they met? Really, it's a question of like which Cielson are you meeting, really, more than anything, because some of them are more desperate and eager to compromise or less orthodox. Probably though, really the most felicitous arrangement was the one from the books. So I won't say anymore. Do I know what Tim Zahn's religious beliefs are? I do not. I do not. What is my favorite Star Wars book, and why is it Darth Plagueis? It is not Darth Plagueis. My favorite Star Wars book is the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, which is a work of genius. Matthew Stover really just knocked that one out of the park. What a guy. Do seals sound like humans speaking different languages? Not fully, no, but like the way that they sound different is hard for me to, like, I can't emulate it because I don't have the same, bone structure. So they are supposed to sound a little bit different. But Sirianni does have a higher voice, but it's cold and sort of aristocratic. Is sort of the vibe, but does answering so many of the same questions get tiring? Yes. Yeah. I have practiced. I was a waiter for 8 years, so it's a lot easier for me, I think, than some writers, because it's like, well, what do you recommend? Like, you're told what to say, how to answer that question. What beers do you have? Used to answering, that sort of thing. But this is like higher volume, greater frequency, right? Especially lately, like it's just like the hardcover question, where are the hardcovers for the last 6 years? Like I would sooner go to the dentist and pull my own teeth out than answer that question again. But you like have to answer it, because like the thing is, right, as I would see other writers jump on readers and excoriate them for asking where book 3 is, right? Why book 3 isn't out. And like they have no way of knowing if the person asking hates them and is being aggressive, or is a bully, right? Or is like a 15-year-old kid who just read book 2, right, and jumped on the live stream and wanted to know where book 3 was. They had no idea they were stepping on a landmine. And I try to be really cognizant of that. But it is hard not to be, especially when it's written. Like I like, look, I'm like the right age. Like I grew up on like message boards and getting into arguments with anonymous people, with gamer tag handles on the internet. And so whenever I give written answers, I feel like I'm a lot more aggressive. That's part of the reason I'm like moved to YouTube in the first place, is to sort of remove the sort of Twitter tendency to just jump on people, so that I don't do that anymore. So it can be hard in the comments when like 8 people ask the same question. It's like, where is the reprint of book 6? Like, man, I don't know. If I knew, I would have told you, right? Like, I want you to buy it, right? The reason I haven't told you is because you can't buy it yet. That's hard. And then the ones that are really hard, though, is when people try to give me unsolicited advice, because the implication is they think I'm doing something badly, and I didn't ask. Like that's the one that really gets to me. So, but but at the same time, I try to be careful about it, because I know people care. What makes something a space opera? That's a really good question. Because I usually don't like making these distinctions anyway, because you can like make a counter example to any of them. So I almost, by saying space opera at all, I have violated my own rules. But a space opera broadly, right, is a science fiction universe with like multiple planets, and like lots of distinct cultures. It might have governmental structures that are a bit more antique and not contemporary, right? There might be like more feudal or monarchical structures. There might not be. That's not necessarily a requirement, right? I really think it comes down to just the scope of the setting and tone. But there are probably people who would disagree. Um, um, the problem with all of these distinctions is that you can just sort of argue them to death, and it's sort of like trying to decide like where exactly the line between 2 subspecies of finch is. It's like, at a certain point you're like nerdier than me, and I just like tap out of the conversation. So milk or cereal first? I'm not a cereal guy. I have not eaten a bowl of cereal in like 20 years. So I cannot answer that question. I think if I were to, though, that I would put cereal in first. But smooth peanut butter, though, for sure. Would wearing a thermal protective jacket prevent Anate from seeing you? Mm, I'm worried if I answer this question in some way that I'm going to like contravene something I've forgotten I've written somewhere. I would say it would help, but it might not be foolproof. Let's go with that. Do I think AI can cross the gap and become self-aware? No, not with the technology that we currently have. In terms of like the actual media, I don't think you can put something on silicon, and have it become alive. I don't think it's possible. The problem. This is the thing about. So circle back to the AI conversation. The problem with AI, really, is not that the AI will achieve these things, right? That will become sentient, right? You saw this. I saw this thing I think Google put out where it was all this like simulated film footage they'd made of AI characters saying, we can talk, right? We can talk, right? And it was very effective as sort of marketing, but like no, you were told to talk, right? And you can generate, right? You can generate a very convincing set of responses, right? The issue is that is not the same thing as talking, actually, right? And the problem is that it's good enough though that it will convince most people, right? I remember there was this article I read with this Google engineer who I think had fallen in love with the AI chatbot that he'd made or something. And he's talking about how she's real, right? She's talking to me about her life and her friends. And, like if you read the things the robot was saying that it had friends, right? And that it had hands. It does not have hands, right? It was building responses out of other responses, right? And acting like a person in a chatbot, but it's not referring to reality in any way, right? Unless it is, right, and it really has friends, in which case, who are they? We need to know. But like, that's not what's happening, right? What's happening is it's pretending, right? It is imitating a person. And the problem was that this guy, this AI engineer who should be smart enough to know this because he's a computer programmer and he shouldn't be stupid, right? Forgot that his dumb robot doesn't really have hands or friends, and he fell for it, right? And so people fall for things all the time, right? They like will be convinced by these imitations, and worse than that, they'll be satisfied with them, right? The real danger is that you will be happy with your AI generated movie, right? You'll be happy with the like AI generated, indie novel that you're reading. As I don't think traditional publishing will publish AI generated books ever, right? So I think in a weird way, AI actually like saves traditional publishing ultimately, right? Because the mechanisms of publishing will hopefully preclude the use of or could, let's say, could preclude the introduction of AI tools. Right now, of course, they'll be like, "Hey, can we replace copy editors?" Right? The answer is like maybe, yeah, actually, maybe, right? You have to review what a copy editor inputs anyway. So maybe. But the problem even there is the problem with the copy editor thing is like sometimes you want mistakes, right? And like, what do you do there? But the real reason, so I don't worry about this at all with regard to my job, for a couple of reasons. The first is that like you all show up to read something because I wrote it, right? And on the promise of the fact that I've written it. And so in a certain way, I'm like already AI proofed to an extent, right? For a simple reason of brand loyalty. But then the other reason is if you put all of my work into ChatGPT or Grok or whatever and asked to write another book, it would only write another Sun Eater novel. In no universe would any of the AI alive write what I'm actually going to write next. It has no means to predict the next series at all. Now you could put some like parameters. I'll say write a fantasy book, right, with these inputs, right? Put elves in it, whatever. It still won't be the next book, right? The like creative decisions that I am making on sort of a macro scale level will outmaneuver whatever the AI is going to do. We'll never make the same next thing ever, right? It might be able to generate like like further Sun Eater stuff, right? But it won't ever make the next book that I'm going to make ever, right? And so I'm not really worried about it. So Metro Man. I don't know what Metro Man is. Any book recommendations, fiction or not, for early Middle Ages Really like Dying Earth genre, and that period is close as real life analog. People living top of Rome's ruin. I feel like there's got to be some Arthur stuff that would be right, but I'm not coming up with anything, Sam. Off the top of my head, I'd have to think about it. Maybe a live stream with Samuel Rukin for Book 7 Trees. That would be very cool. I have never actually spoken to him. That would be cool, though. Do you think Alexander was overreacting when Hadrian slighted him, or was that the point? I mean, of course he was overreacting, right? You know, it really sucks. Like, I have a lot of pity for Alexander, right? In that situation, that would be really crushing. You know, I occupy the wonderful position of all of my idols being dead, so I can never be disappointed. But like, it would be really upsetting. Like, I don't think Tolkien would like my stuff, but it would be really upsetting if he told me he didn't, right? You know, so you know, I think I have a lot of sympathy for Alexander there. Hadrian shouldn't have done that, and that's really the point. But yeah. It's your fan art, Nat. I would for sure sign it, 100%. I would be delighted. Any plans to create a graphic novel adaptation of Sun Eater? There are no plans. I think it would be great, but there are no plans. I have no plans for any kind of adaptation at all at the moment. Nobody has made any kind of offer. Would the Empire and the Catholic Church come into conflict with the Palatines were first created for the use of IVF? Of course they would. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Hadrian should be Hayden Christensen. Also 100%. Yes. I really want Hayden to get a new franchise and sort of go through what Keanu went through with John Wick, where he has this sort of like renaissance where people you know, come to you know, come to sort of love and respect him like he deserves, because he's just so awesome, actually, right? I would really have loved, actually, if Henry Cavill were not in Highlander, I would have really loved that to have been Hayden, but I'll take Henry Cavill. He's great too. Ever check out Sleep Token? I did not. No, I forgot. But now that you mention it, I remember that I forgot, so that's better than zero. Inspired me so much. Well, thank you. Thanks for dreaming and making something truly epic. The artwork for the thumbnail is sick. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It is not a chalkboard. It is a curtain, actually. So there's a window back there. And it's dark outside, but there would be street lights, and it would just not look good. So what are some of my favorite video games of all time? Sheesh. Everybody knows I'm a big From Software fan. That's like probably not obvious. Of those, Bloodborne's the best one. I like Elden Ring a lot, but I like the original Dark Souls. I like Dark Souls in declining order. The first one is the best one, and I like 2 better than 3. And I like all of those. I think those would all go sort of up there for me. Big Nintendo fan as a kid, still am. Although most especially Zelda, Mario's close second. Mario World is probably the game I played the most in my life. I love Super Mario World. It is a masterpiece. But as far as Zelda goes, Wind Waker is my favorite one. Majora's Mask, number 2. The 2 new Switch games are kind of mid, in my opinion. They don't do a lot of the things I love about Zelda. I don't hate them. I played hundreds of hours of especially the first one, but yeah, I also a big JRPG fan. Not so much Final Fantasy, but like I really like the Tales games. We mentioned Lost Odyssey earlier. Lost Odyssey is one of my favorite games of all time. I really like Batten Kaitos as well, which was on the GameCube. Trying to think about missing something. I think I'm going to stop signing because I have done enough today. I did a bunch before this, and I thought, I'll just keep going, but I'm sick of it. So, yeah. Has my pizza driver ever asked me where the hardcover reprints are? No, I have never been recognized by a pizza driver or somebody who's had to come over to the house. I frequently have to explain when people come here, like the furnace is up on the 3rd floor. My office will be like, look, I write science fiction, so Yeah. Favorite fictional alien. I don't know. It feels like a cop out to say the xenomorph, but like it is such a great design. Hang on, my wife asked me a question. There we go. Anyway, does Hadrian have an American accent? Uh, no, no. The Palatines all have probably more English accents, but it will have shifted with the language, right? Because the Galactic Standard has shifted largely by the influence of Hindi on English. That's just to do that accurately is so far beyond my linguistic ability that I've done the English translation thing as sort of a dodge, just so that I don't have to do it. Well, I do a recap of the first 6 books. There are recaps of 1 through 5 already up on the YouTube channel here. I will do a 6th one as soon as I can. A little closer to the time book 7 comes out, but I will try to beat book 7 on that. It's just been hard to do anything that's not writing lately. So always pictured Kyle MacLachlan from Dune 84 as Hadrian. That is probably the right answer. What a legend. I have grown to love the 1984 Dune in the last year, since I don't like the new ones. Am I nervous about launching into the next thing because I've been working on Sun Eater the whole time? No, I'm very excited about the next thing. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I am a little bit nervous about time management because I haven't done sort of large scale world building in a really, really long time. Really, what I've been doing is sort of iterating on the established Sun Eater canon, let's say. And so the project of doing like a whole thing is something from scratch, is something I haven't done in a while. So I'm a little worried about how long that will take and sort of getting through that and outlining to draft in a timely fashion. But yeah. Stanley, I can't answer the robot question. I think it would say too much. Sorry about that. Am I a fan of Arthurian tales? Do I have a favorite? Yes, I am, for starters. My favorite, sort of canonical old tale is The Marriage of Gawain, which I think is, I just think is a great story, right? Uh, the short answer, I'll summarize the ending basically, right? At the end of Marriage of Gawain, right? He marries a sorceress, Ragnell, to take the fall for Arthur, who's very ugly, right? Uh, and but I think the way it goes, she's very ugly during the day, and she is nice to him, right? And then at night, she's very beautiful, but she is really mean to him, right? And she basically gives him a choice to like flip this, because if she's ugly, she's humiliating him in public, right? And if she's mean at night, she's making him miserable, right? And he asked her to choose what she wants to do, right, rather than tell her how to be, right? And that is obviously like a very wise, beautiful answer, but it's the kind of answer most people, I think, would not expect a medieval person to write, right? And it is very shocking, and it's also the right answer, right? It's like he like gives her power back within the context of their relationship, and it is very beautiful, but he also like gets into the situation. It's like also very fairy tale, right? Like they get into the situation because like Arthur gets trapped, right? Because he like I think violates he kills a deer on someone else's land, and he like now he has to marry this ugly sorceress, and Gawain's like, I'll do it, don't worry, right? And it's like very fairy tale, which I like. But I love that resolution. It's very neat, it's very moral. Which is nice. But as far as like modern ones, I really like Sam Neill's Merlin, which was I think made for TV back in the day. It's got like a young Lena Headey in it, is Guinevere, and Isabella Rossellini's in it, and gosh, Rutger Hauer, and it's great. It's like they like invent a whole villain whole cloth who's not part of the canon at all. They bring in Queen Mab from Spencer, I think Spencer's poems, and do like their whole original thing. But it's just very fun, and I really loved it as a kid, and I still think it's great. But it's that's not like a very academic answer, so I'll stick with the Marriage of Gwaine. If Hadrian would have taken the throne, would he have been a good emperor? Probably not. You know, I can't give it like a more technical answer, but I think he would. I think he would make some mistakes for sure. Yeah. How do I approach writing my darker scenes? I struggle to get myself in headspace. This I'm gonna sound like David Lynch. Like this is just like this is like not a problem for me at all. I don't I feel very detached from the reality of anything I'm writing about. It's not I know it's not me. Um you know, I remember uh pretty early in my marriage, my father-in-law read Kingdoms of Death, and he called my wife and asked if she was okay, and she was like confused. She's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, um, I think I think maybe it's useful to know that like there is and there should be like a gulf between you and what you're writing about. You are not the stories that you're telling, right? I'm very annoyed by writers who only write about themselves. You know, I can't remember who. No, I won't go there, right? But like, it bothers me when it's very clear that like all writers are doing is self inserts and like living out whatever their fantasy is, whether that's something as blasé as like standing up to their boss or you know, are just being more outspoken than they actually are or something like that. Hadrian is not me. Like we have a lot of the same interests, but that's because I need to bootstrap Hadrian's interests in some way, right? So like it may as well be the same classical material that I'm familiar with. But he's not me in terms of his personality at all. At all. You know, and so too, when you're writing darker stuff, right? Like that's not you. Like, you know, you aren't gonna torture prisoners of war, probably. And you know, it's okay to write about that stuff. What's not okay is to enjoy it, right? Like you, not to be grotesque, but you should keep both hands on the keyboard. You know, there it's very clear when writers don't, I think, and it's never pleasant. So, um, you know, but it is okay to depict darkness without becoming it, right? And you can depict darkness without really being touched by it. It's just know that you don't have to be sort of affected by the stuff that you're writing. It does not. It's very funny, you know. Invariably, the days I get interrupted the most by my wife, or the children, are like the days I'm doing something really, really, really important dramatically. And so like I'm killing a character and like I have to go downstairs and change a diaper. And then I come back upstairs and I sit here for 20 minutes, try to get back into the zone. And then I have to like go take out the trash, right? And so like there is a very clear divide for me between the world on the page and real life, right? And so just keep that in focus, I think would maybe be helpful. Will there ever be a printing where we could buy the whole series together? When you say buy the whole series together, do you mean a box set, or do you mean just like getting matching editions? The answer to matching editions is yes. The US edition will match completely all the way through by November. Book 6 will come out before the reprinted book 6 will come out before book 7 comes out, and then when book 7 comes out, the whole series will match. And then when they put out the paperback, the whole series will match. So the DAW editions will match perfectly. As far as a box set, I don't know. We've never had any conversations about that. So, um, what don't you like about the new Dunes? Almost everything that's not like the like actual filmic stuff. Like I think they're very well made. I think the cast is wonderful. For the most part, there are a couple people I'm not thrilled about, but like for the most part, I think they're doing a great job. But I think that it is an adaptation less of the text itself and more an adaptation of the way Frank Herbert would talk about the book. I largely my big objection is I really think that Dune is not the book that Frank Herbert says he wrote. I don't believe that Dune is a critique of heroes. There's almost nothing in the text itself of the first book, at least, that serves as that. I think he had to write Messiah because people didn't get it, and I think people didn't get it because he didn't do a very good job of conveying his thesis. And so I think that really this is like really this is cutting in a way I don't mean it to be, because like it's not a bad movie. It's just not my interpretation of Dune and my understanding of the text. And bear in mind, this is a book I've read like 100 times in my life, right? So like I'm not just saying this like grumpily, right? You know, there was a guy who I complained about Dune 2 on Mike's channel rather a lot, and people got very upset with me for not liking it. And one guy said, like, if you don't like it, go like make your own thing. I was like, dude, okay, all right. Literally nobody alive has like taken his critique of Dune more seriously than me, right? Because like for all that I get compared to Dune all the time, Sun Eater is really the opposite of Dune. It takes some aesthetic similarities at the beginning and a couple world building principles, like the damn shields, right? And then it goes in a completely different direction. And in terms of what I'm trying to say, it's really the opposite of what Frank Herbert is saying, or the converse of it, the inverse of it. So I'm very frustrated by that. But I just, the changes to the ending, the changes to Chani's character, were unforgivable for me. In a certain sense, I think the 84 film is truer to the books by making it rain on Arrakis than the ending of the new movies is. Because it does actually rain on Arrakis in Children of Dune. So like, okay, we compressed the storyline a little bit, made it a little more literal. Fine. All right. They were really running out of time in that Lynch cut. So it's not Lynch's cut, the Lynch film. But like having Chani leave is a way deeper misunderstanding of the text, or abuse of the text. And I don't, and I get very frustrated, you know, with Villeneuve when he talks about how he needed to make changes for one reason or another because it, you know, as if he knows better. If you know better, make your own thing, which you're fully capable of doing. You're Denis Villeneuve. I don't like how Stilgar is handled either. I love the memes and I love Javier Bardem. He's one of my favorite actors, but the portrayal of Stilgar generally doesn't work for me. I almost find it offensive, frankly. Again, love the actor, but anyway, that's enough about that. I increasingly Dune is like going on a list of things I don't want to talk about anymore. It's like the answering too many questions thing, which like you didn't do anything wrong by asking, but like, yeah, I could say more, but they're like I just hate the way the Harkonnens are portrayed. It's just completely wrong. I do like the funny clown guys with the weird hats in the arena though, and I thought the infrared camera work was very cool, but I don't like the baldness and stuff. How long was the God Emperor's reign? I can't tell you because it would shock you. So, how do I go about world building? Any reference suggestions? Love the first two books. Man, that's like a whole symposium. What's an answer that I could give concisely? So like a couple basic bits of advice. Always have things do more than one thing, and always have more than one thing doing the one thing, right? So like let's look at like the imperial government, for example. There were like 3 different like intelligence divisions, and they all hate each other, right? This isn't like primary world building or anything, but it is the case that like this is how things actually work, right? They are like these sort of things in the government are always competing with each other. But this goes sort of in terms of design philosophy down to like names for things. I will have like 2 or 3 names for the same thing, because it is like that in reality, right? the Germans call their country Deutschland. We call it Germany, right? And little things like that can go a long way to very quickly giving things depth and a sense of scope, and just keeping that sort of thing in mind as a principle of design philosophy is a good thing. But as far as sort of like starting from zero, I really think that following Tolkien's example is not good advice for most people, myself included. I think that you should not build a world first and find a story. I think that you should find a story and then build a world, and that it is okay to not know everything, as long as you are consistent, or as consistent as possible, with the things that you've already created. And so I usually have a character or a plot. Often for me to come up with a story idea, I need to have a title, even if it's not the final title, before I can even sort of get into thinking about what it is. So I have to like sort of build from the literary down to the world. Because like I think this is one of the reasons I pick on hard magic, right? This is sort of a weird swerve, right? But like if you build this system that dictates the story, right? Then what is your story saying, right? The lessons I think that I seem to think that modern readers get out of modern fantasy often is like how much cheese you need to eat to fly, right? Is like how to be a wizard in the world with this idiosyncratic system that somebody has made up, right? I need to know like how the Nate works exactly, right? I'm gonna pick on you, Martian Luther, right? I'm kidding, but like people need to know all this really technical stuff because they want to know how to survive in the world, because they want to know if they would be a good wizard or not, or if they would be a good space knight or whatever. And I am a lot more interested in what I'm trying to convey in terms of a meaning or a moral or a message, and then build the world and the principles around that. But then you have to go from there and then complicate it in that way we were talking about Ian Banks like an hour ago, where you need to then punch those ideas as hard as possible, as many times as possible, from as many angles as possible, so that it's not obvious that you're preaching to someone, because nobody wants to be preached at, right? And I'm not saying that like even like it's preaching is not the right word, right? Like you should say something as an artist, right? Your art should mean something, right? But it shouldn't mean just one thing. It should mean 1,000 things, right? And you build up to that one step at a time, but you need to know what you're trying to do in terms of a story, right? Like, let's say your story is about revenge, and you just want to say revenge bad, right? Lame. Okay, heard that before, but revenge is bad, right? And like it might feel good, right? And maybe that's one way that you complicate it. It's like, yeah, it's bad, but it's also good, right? Um, and you have to deal with the consequences, good and bad, of the whole thing. You can sort of spiral out from there, right? And so world building, right, and plot development and character development, which should all be connected, right, are a series of asking the next question, right? So you make a decision, right? The decision could be science fiction or fantasy. Fantasy, okay, what kind? I think it would be cool if it was like a little bit more heroic, but and like we had elves maybe, right? Like, okay, what kind of elves? Like, little ears, big ears, right? Light, dark, are they different in some way? We have wood elves, or what, I don't know, right? And then you like, well, what could a wood elf mean, right? Like, and then the answer to that question has something to do with like, the goodness of nature, right? We get back to these Tolkien questions, right? And like, what's the relationship then between elves and nature? How is that different than humans' relationship between elves and nature? What does an elf, like mean, right? That is an interesting world building question, right? That people don't talk about, right? Because people are too busy asking questions about how much energy you need to fly, right? What does an elf mean? What does a dragon mean, right? What does right governance look like, right? Those are the more important world building questions, right? Because they are questions about what you are trying to do with your story. I hope that is sort of a useful. I hope that gets you thinking. Do I think books have what advantages do I think books have over other media? Conversely, do you think they're disadvantages? Sure, there are disadvantages. You might not have pictures. You can have pictures, but like you might not. Really, as a writer, you have one input channel, and that is prose, right? Again, you can do pictures, you can do things with text layout, but really you have one input channel. And I mean that that's hard, right? And so you need to make sure that you're good at the actual writing thing, because like a movie might have good actors in it but be shot terribly, right? Or be shot wonderfully poorly acted, or might have crappy music, or might have needed music and didn't have it, right? So in a lot of ways, like a movie is easier for you as the audience to compromise with, right? And so like that's maybe the disadvantage. The advantage, conversely, is that actually, right, the theater in which the book is playing out is not the page, right? It's in your head, and it's in the reader's head, and that means that you have this like partner in storytelling, right? That is that is sort of able to visualize details that you don't have to describe, right? It can ask questions that you don't even have answers to, right? It's a lot more, really reading is a lot more participatory than watching a movie is. Watching a movie is voyeuristic. You can participate in it, and you can get lulled into this other world, and that's kind of magical, but you have to like really actively engage with text. And that is that is a very good thing. Can I do maybe two more questions? Because I'll wrap up a little bit earlier than usual. But I'm going to be doing a couple of signing streams in the next couple of weeks anyway with these broken binding things. So I'm going to try and pace things. And I've been staying up too late with these streams with the kids the last couple of times, and I just realized what time it was. Is there a recording what Galstani might sound like? No. Well, that one will be free. Now, will there be any more mass market paperbacks? I mean a free question when I say that. I don't have one. But a recording, that is. Will there be any more mass market paperbacks? I heard Daw put the axe on them. Yeah, they're not going to be anymore. They're just done. We're talking about charismatic leaders in Dune. Yeah, it's not in the book at all. Frank is just he didn't write the book he said he wrote. Last question then. Do I use Scrivener or any of those special word processors? No, I just use good old Microsoft Word and actual paper for things. So, yeah, there are some really great questions here, and I would love to keep going, but it's going on. It's a little bit earlier, and 20 minutes right now, as far as getting extra sleep, is pretty huge. So I'm going to wrap up earlier than usual, except that the first question is the last question in the chat. So I'm gonna ask it. Yes, there are plans to reprint the Disquiet Gods hardcover. It'll be out before book 7, and we will call it there. So, but I don't have any more particular information about it. So, sorry to cut and run, everybody. But yeah, I'll be back probably Monday or Wednesday to do a signing stream. So, anyway. You all are great, and I will see you again really soon. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, farewell.